Most of us walk through life completely unaware of the invisible, suffocating rulebook that governs millions of Americans. Today, we are exposing the baffling world of parole and probation, where the government micromanages basic human existence. You are about to discover the most absurd, logic-defying regulations ever written. By the end of this video, you will be absolutely stunned by the humiliating, illogical laws governing life after lockup. 1. You might think a sobriety mandate makes sense for a DUI conviction, but try wrapping your head around a strict zero-tolerance alcohol policy for a guy who committed white-collar tax fraud. Across many states, parolees are entirely banned from consuming even a drop of alcohol, regardless of their original crime. That means a guy who cooked the books at a hedge fund is legally barred from having a glass of champagne at his own daughter's wedding. 2. Here is a rule that genuinely destroys families. Parolees are strictly forbidden from associating with other convicted felons. It sounds great on paper until you realize this applies to their own family members. If two brothers made a terrible mistake together a decade ago, they cannot legally sit at the same Thanksgiving dinner table without violating their parole. Imagine having to choose between hugging your brother and going back to a concrete cell. It is bureaucratic cruelty masquerading as public safety. 3. Welcome back to high school because the government is officially your new strict parent. Many adults on probation are slapped with humiliating curfews, typically forcing them to be inside their homes by 8 or 9 at night. Got a lucrative night shift opportunity that pays a decent living wage? Too bad, you have to turn it down. Want to grab a late dinner or catch a midnight movie? Not happening. The state treats grown adults like grounded teenagers, severely crippling their ability to rebuild a normal life. 4. Imagine trying to survive in the modern world without having access to the internet. For certain parolees, this is not a fun weekend thought experiment. It is the rigid law. They are completely banned from accessing the web, owning a computer, or even holding a smartphone. Now, try applying for a job, renting an apartment, or even checking a local bus schedule without looking at a screen. It is the exact equivalent of banishing someone back to the 19th century and expecting them to magically succeed in a digital economy. 5. Romance is dead, and your parole officer is holding the weapon. In several jurisdictions, individuals on supervision must formally disclose any new romantic relationships to their officer for approval. Yes, a government employee actually has the power to veto your Tinder date. If you get serious with someone, your officer might even insist on visiting their home and interviewing them. How would you feel if your partner's parole officer showed up to vet you over coffee? It is the ultimate mood killer. 6. Not drinking alcohol is one thing, but simply walking into a building that happens to serve it is an entirely different legal trap. Many probationers are banned from entering any establishment where alcohol is the primary source of revenue. This means they cannot walk into a local sports bar just to order a plate of hot wings, or meet a friend at a neighborhood pub to watch a football game while drinking tap water. One wrong step into the wrong wing joint, and they are heading straight back to lockup. 7. Freedom of movement is a complete illusion when you are practically tethered to your specific zip code. Parolees are often forbidden from leaving their county or state without written permission obtained weeks in advance. If your mother falls deathly ill in the next town over, you cannot just jump in the car and speed off to see her. You have to wait for a remarkably sluggish bureaucracy to stamp a piece of paper first. By the time the paperwork clears, it might be entirely too late to say goodbye. 8. You are not working for a secret intelligence agency, but you might be forced to take a polygraph test anyway. Certain high-risk supervision programs require ex-convicts to undergo regular, highly stressful lie detector tests just to verify they are diligently following the rules. These machines are notoriously unreliable, frequently flagging nervous, innocent people as liars. Imagine having your fragile freedom hang in the balance just because your heart fluttered while a stern officer interrogated you. 9. Here is the ultimate bureaucratic slap in the face. The government monitors your every move, massively restricts your job prospects, and then forces you to pay for the privilege. Probationers are routinely charged hefty monthly supervision fees. If you cannot afford to pay your assigned parole officer to watch you, that very failure to pay becomes a violation that can send you right back behind bars. We have essentially created a modern debtor's prison where absolute poverty is treated as a serious crime. 10. Your body is a temple, but the state apparently owns the deed to it. Getting a new tattoo or a simple piercing while on probation is considered a direct violation in some specific districts. The flawed logic is that modifying your appearance makes it harder for law enforcement to identify you. So, a guy who served time for petty shoplifting cannot legally get a tiny tattoo of his newborn baby's name on his forearm. Is it really serving justice to aggressively regulate what a person draws on their own skin? 11. Breakfast pastries can literally send you back to jail in the blink of an eye. Because standard drug tests administered to parolees are incredibly sensitive, eating a simple lemon poppy seed muffin at a local cafe can easily trigger a false positive for opiates. To avoid the absolute bureaucratic nightmare of proving they did not actually relapse, former inmates are routinely warned to treat poppy seeds like a dangerous Class A felony. 12. Privacy is a luxury you must leave entirely at the prison gates. In many strict districts, parole officers demand complete access to your digital life, including passwords to your Facebook, Instagram, and private email accounts. They can legally scroll through your direct messages, read intimate texts with your family, and ruthlessly judge your daily internet history. Would you comfortably hand over your unlocked phone to a government agent today? That is their mandatory reality, leaving zero room for basic personal boundaries or dignity. 13. Man's best friend is suddenly transformed into a massive legal liability. Because probation officers must be able to conduct unannounced home visits at any time of day or night, many ex-convicts are strictly prohibited from owning dogs, particularly large or protective breeds. The state views your newly adopted golden retriever not as a loyal companion aiding your mental health, but as a potential furry weapon obstructing a random search. Say goodbye to the wonderful idea of rescuing a helpless pup from the local animal shelter. 14. True love means nothing if the state holds the ultimate veto power over your wedding day. In certain strict jurisdictions, you cannot legally get married while on paper without explicit, written permission from your supervising officer. The government can casually delay or outright deny your marital bliss if they feel you are not financially stable or if they simply dislike your chosen partner. Imagine a grumpy, underpaid bureaucrat having the final say over whether you get to walk down the aisle. Does the state really own your heart too? 15. Video games are supposed to be an innocent escape, but for some individuals on parole, they act as a hidden bureaucratic trap. The rules clearly state you cannot associate with unapproved people. Some overzealous probation departments actually interpret this to mean playing multiplayer online games is strictly forbidden. Yes, booting up a console and talking to random strangers in a voice lobby technically counts as unauthorized fraternization. A guy sitting entirely alone in his living room can lose his freedom just for healing a teammate online. 16. Pawn shops are completely out of bounds for the newly released. Even if an ex-con just wants to buy a cheap second-hand acoustic guitar or a used flat-screen television for their empty apartment, stepping foot inside a local pawn shop is a direct violation in multiple states. The massive assumption here is that they are automatically fencing stolen goods. The system basically treats every single person on paper like a cartoon burglar trying to quickly sell a stolen gold watch. How are they supposed to furnish a home on a tight budget? 17. The gig economy is totally off-limits when it comes to securing basic transportation. While the rest of the busy world relies on Uber and Lyft to get home safely after dark, many parolees are explicitly banned from using modern ride-sharing apps entirely. The flawed government logic dictates that officers need to know exactly who is driving them and what exact route they are taking at all times. Does forcing someone to walk 3 long miles in the freezing midnight rain actually make our local communities any safer in the grand scheme? 18. Try renting a decent apartment or paying a basic electric bill using only a stuffed envelope of loose cash. It is practically impossible today. Yet certain white-collar convictions come with a bizarre blanket ban on opening a standard bank account or holding any credit cards. We loudly demand that these individuals smoothly reintegrate into society and become productive citizens. But how can they? The rigid system intentionally blocks them from utilizing the most basic financial tools required to actually survive in a totally digital modern economy. 19. Scratch-off tickets are practically treated like dangerous illegal contraband. In strict states like Texas, some probationers are explicitly barred from participating in any form of gambling, which broadly includes buying a harmless $2 lottery ticket at the neighborhood gas station. Should buying a colorful piece of cardboard really equal immediate jail time? The state effectively acts as an incredibly strict financial advisor who threatens you with instant incarceration if you dare to waste just a tiny bit of your own spare change. 20. You cannot even fully control the hair growing on your own head. Some incredibly strict parole guidelines strictly forbid individuals from drastically changing their physical appearance without prior written consent. Want to shave your head for the brutal summer heat, or dye your hair blonde to celebrate a fresh start in life? You have to politely ask the government first. If you alter your daily look without their official approval, you are instantly accused of trying to cleverly evade identification and hide from local law enforcement. 21. Owning basic office equipment can instantly make you look like a criminal mastermind. If someone was previously convicted of minor forgery or check fraud, they might face a strict, permanent ban from owning a personal scanner, photocopier, or even a decent home printer. The state bizarrely assumes that the mere presence of a modern wireless inkjet will somehow compel them to start mass-producing counterfeit money in their bedroom. Imagine having to drive all the way to a local library just to legally print out your own digital tax documents. 22. Halloween is practically canceled by state decree. In many regions, individuals on supervision are forced to turn off all their exterior lights, lock their front doors, and pretend they do not exist on October 31st. They are strictly barred from handing out candy or decorating their porches, even if their past offenses had absolutely nothing to do with children. The government treats them like a looming neighborhood threat, forcing grown adults to sit in total darkness while the rest of the entire block enjoys a festive, harmless holiday. 23. Hitting the gym to get healthy sounds like a great rehabilitation plan until you look inside their shaker cup. Ex-convicts are frequently prohibited from consuming everyday fitness supplements, protein powders, or standard pre-workout energy drinks. Because these unregulated fitness products occasionally trigger false positives on highly sensitive screening tests, officers simply ban them entirely. Trying to build a little muscle mass safely could legitimately result in a massive bureaucratic disaster. Should protein powder really be illegal? 24. Wearing a GPS ankle monitor is already uncomfortable, but the charging logistics are a totally different nightmare. These bulky tracking devices have terrible battery lives, forcing parolees to literally tether themselves to a wall outlet for 2 to 3 hours every single day. If the battery dies while they are stuck in heavy rush-hour traffic or working a long shift, an alarm triggers a terrifying police response. You are effectively a prisoner to the nearest electrical socket. How would you like to plan your entire day around a wall plug? 25. Welcome to the digital age, where holding modern currency is a massive violation. For those with any sort of financial mark on their record, possessing cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Ethereum is strictly outlawed. The legal system views digital wallets as nothing more than shadowy tools for laundering money, completely ignoring the fact that crypto has become a mainstream financial asset. They are forced to stay tied to archaic banking systems while the rest of the digital world rapidly moves forward. It is forced financial stagnation by design. 26. Taking a beautiful landscape photo could easily get you detained. Certain probation terms include a bizarrely strict ban on owning any standalone camera equipment or even basic binoculars. The incredibly paranoid reasoning is that you might be secretly conducting surveillance on local law enforcement or casing a future robbery target. So, a person who simply wants to take up amateur birdwatching or landscape photography is treated like a highly trained corporate spy. The state remains terrified of a basic telephoto lens pointing at a random tree. 27. You would logically think that volunteering for a local charity would be the ultimate sign of successful rehabilitation. Wrong. In many jurisdictions, joining a volunteer group requires jumping through endless bureaucratic hoops, and it is often flat-out denied. The system officially classifies charitable work as an unapproved, unsupervised association with strangers. Giving away your free time to help the homeless or clean up a local park can legally be viewed as suspicious behavior. When did community service become a red flag for law enforcement? 28. Finding a decent job with a criminal record is already an uphill battle, but the rigid rules make it downright humiliating. Some supervision conditions force individuals to immediately disclose their exact criminal history to every single coworker they interact with, not just the company hiring manager. Imagine walking into the office break room on your very first day and being legally forced to announce your past mistakes to people just trying to eat their lunch. It completely destroys any chance of a fresh start, ensuring you remain a permanent outcast. 29. You might know you cannot leave the state, but did you know you might be banned from specific streets? Geographic restrictions can be so hyper-specific that a probationer is legally forbidden from driving down certain main avenues in their own hometown. If their fastest route to work happens to cross an imaginary red line drawn by a judge on a city map, they must take a ridiculously long, convoluted detour every single morning. Accidentally making a wrong turn into a forbidden intersection could instantly trigger a devastating parole violation. 30. Splitting the rent to save money is a standard survival tactic, but not if you are on paper. Moving in with a roommate requires absolute bureaucratic approval, and the state will relentlessly background check whoever you plan to live with. If your prospective roommate has even a minor decade-old misdemeanor on their permanent record, the housing request is instantly denied. You are essentially forced to shoulder the crushing burden of full rent in a terrible economy simply because your friend got a tiny public nuisance ticket back in college. 31. Trendy health beverages can surprisingly land you right back in handcuffs. Kombucha is a popular fermented tea praised for its probiotics, but it contains microscopic, naturally occurring trace amounts of alcohol. For a strict probationer, a quick sip of this wellness drink after yoga is legally treated exactly the same as chugging a cheap beer. A routine test simply cannot tell the difference between holistic health choices and a wild weekend bender. Imagine explaining to an angry judge that you violated your release over organic hipster tea. 32. A thick wallet makes you an immediate suspect in the eyes of the law. In some specific jurisdictions, an individual on supervision is completely barred from holding more than $50 in pocket money at any given time. The paranoid government assumption is that paper currency means you are actively buying or selling forbidden substances. If you want to quickly buy a used couch off the internet or simply pay a handy local mechanic in cash, you risk a massive violation. When exactly did holding a few crisp bills become a literal crime? 33. Most people can escape a terrible, abusive boss by simply resigning from their position. But if you are on parole, quitting a toxic workplace without securing prior official permission is a direct violation of your release. You are legally mandated to maintain steady employment, meaning you must endure terrible working conditions, wage theft, or daily verbal abuse until your officer officially stamps your resignation letter. You are effectively trapped in professional purgatory just to satisfy an arbitrary government quota. Is that really fair? 34. A splash of nice cologne for a romantic date or a big job interview could secretly trigger a massive legal disaster. Many expensive men's fragrances, aftershaves, and perfumes contain high levels of alcohol. Putting on designer scents before leaving the house can absolutely trigger the highly sensitive transdermal alcohol monitors strapped to an ex-convict's ankle. Your expensive bottle of Tom Ford could register as an unauthorized drinking binge to a remote computer. Should smelling like fresh pine really trigger a swift police response? 35. A simple DIY home repair project could technically be construed as preparing for a massive heist. If an individual has a past property offense, they might be strictly banned from owning standard items like heavy crowbars, bolt cutters, or even large flathead screwdrivers. These everyday hardware store purchases are aggressively classified as dangerous burglary tools by the court. A guy who simply wants to renovate his crumbling bathroom is treated like a master thief plotting a bank job. How are you supposed to maintain a home without a basic toolkit? 36. Your smartphone battery percentage is now a matter of strict national security. Many modern parole programs require mandatory location tracking apps installed directly on personal devices. If your phone battery happens to dip below 20% or accidentally dies while you are stuck on a long train commute, it is officially classified as tampering with a government tracking device. You must live in a constant panicked state of battery anxiety, desperately hunting for a charging cable just to prove you are not currently fleeing the country. 37. Local weekend flea markets can legally classify you as a dangerous black market smuggler. Shopping at swap meets or neighborhood garage sales is strictly prohibited in several jurisdictions. The state automatically assumes that any informal, cash-based marketplace is exclusively designed for moving stolen merchandise. You cannot simply buy a cheap vintage lamp or a used bedside table from a friendly neighbor without an officer assuming you are secretly fencing hot goods. Who knew casual antiquing was such a massive threat to public safety? 38. A harmless neighborhood softball team or a weekend bowling league feels like the perfect way to safely rebuild a normal social life. However, the system often classifies this as participating in an unauthorized group assembly. Because casual sports leagues usually involve large groups of unvetted strangers, parolees are frequently barred from participating at all. The state prefers you stay entirely isolated in your room rather than hitting a home run with local accountants and school teachers. Is forced isolation the best path to rehabilitation? 39. An inspiring memoir about your personal rehabilitation journey could technically be illegal. Broadly interpreted laws often prevent former inmates from legally monetizing their own life stories through blogs, self-published books, or local speaking engagements. Even if the content is highly positive and designed to steer troubled teenagers away from making similar bad choices, earning a single dollar from their past experiences is strictly forbidden. It actively discourages them from sharing incredibly valuable life lessons with the world. 40. The state heavily censors your Friday movie nights. Certain probation conditions strictly dictate what kind of media an ex-convict can consume in their own private home. Watching an R-rated action movie or playing a game that features fictionalized crime can be deemed a violation, as it supposedly promotes antisocial behavior. You could be a model citizen working 50 hours a week, but renting a classic mobster film on a weekend could technically land you back in front of an angry judge. Say goodbye to your favorite cinematic masterpieces. 41. Baking a simple birthday cake can turn into a legal nightmare. Pure vanilla extract contains a surprisingly high percentage of alcohol, making it a forbidden substance for anyone on strict supervision. If a parole officer conducts a random kitchen search and finds a tiny bottle of McCormick vanilla next to your flour and sugar, you can be written up for possessing intoxicating liquids. The state essentially treats amateur bakers like hardened bootleggers. Is making a homemade chocolate chip cookie really a threat to public safety? 42. Seeking professional help can paradoxically violate your release terms. Group therapy and support meetings are crucial for recovery, yet they are filled with individuals who also have criminal records. Because parolees are strictly banned from associating with known felons, attending a local support group technically breaks the law. You are mandated to stay clean, but barred from sitting in the very rooms designed to help you achieve that exact goal. The system traps people in an impossible maze where getting help is a literal crime. 43. A late-night medical emergency requires clearing miles of bureaucratic red tape. If a probationer experiences severe chest pains at 2 in the morning, they cannot simply rush straight to the local hospital. Because of strict curfew laws and GPS monitoring, they must frantically attempt to contact their sleeping parole officer for official permission first. Leaving the house to save your own life without authorization triggers an automatic escape alarm. Should a person really have to choose between a massive heart attack and a prison cell? 44. Simple road construction can easily trigger a massive police response. GPS trackers demand that ex-convicts stick strictly to pre-approved routes when driving to work. If a water main breaks and forces a driver to take a sudden 2-mile detour through a different neighborhood, the ankle monitor instantly flags them for absconding. A completely innocent attempt to simply bypass heavy traffic is logged as a deliberate, sneaky attempt to flee the jurisdiction. The state assumes you are escaping when you are just trying to arrive on time. 45. Asking the internet for medical help is strictly forbidden. If a former inmate faces a crushing medical diagnosis or a sudden house fire, starting a crowdfunding page is frequently classified as the unauthorized solicitation of public funds. Even though millions of Americans rely on digital charity to survive terrible tragedies, parolees are entirely blocked from seeking this help. The government would rather see them completely ruined by unexpected debt than allow them to legally accept $10 from a sympathetic stranger on the web. 46. The weekly grocery run has somehow become a highly monitored, incredibly stressful event. If a person was previously convicted of simple retail theft, they are often permanently banned from using modern self-checkout lanes at local supermarkets. While the rest of society quickly scans their apples and leaves, the parolee is legally forced to stand in endless lines for a human cashier. Accidentally using the robotic terminal to quickly buy a gallon of milk is logged as a severe violation. 47. Your modern smart home is spying on you for the government. Having a basic voice assistant or a smart thermostat is considered a direct violation in certain strict programs because they are unmonitored internet-capable devices. Officers argue that a probationer could theoretically use a smart speaker to secretly communicate with criminal associates. Consequently, they are forced to rip out smart bulbs and unplug doorbell cameras just to appease an incredibly paranoid bureaucracy. Is a smart thermostat really a sophisticated underworld tool? 48. The legal system demands absolute civic participation unless you are on paper. While ordinary citizens dread receiving a jury duty summons in the mail, ex-convicts are legally barred from serving on a jury. Yet, because state databases rarely communicate efficiently, they still receive these official summons regularly. They are then forced to physically go down to the courthouse, reveal their humiliating criminal past to the judge, and formally beg to be excused to avoid a violation. It is a completely pointless, embarrassing bureaucratic loop. 49. A safe place to live is incredibly hard to find, but your roommate's legitimate career can secretly ruin everything. Ex-convicts are legally prohibited from residing in a house where any firearms are present. This sounds completely logical until you realize it means they cannot live with a police officer, an active military service member, or a licensed security guard. Even if the weapon is securely locked inside a massive biometric safe that the parolee cannot open, merely sleeping under the same roof is a fast track back to a cold cell. Alright, we have covered 49 rules, with just one left. But first, it is time for the final verdict. The award for the dumbest rule today has to go to the jury duty paradox. The state legally bans you from serving, yet blindly sends you official summons anyway, forcing you to go to court and humiliate yourself to avoid jail. It is a completely pointless, broken loop. Do you agree with our verdict? Or did another rule earn this dubious honor? Let us know in the comments below. And now, our final entry. 50. The most dangerous place for an ex-convict is actually the parole office itself. Since they are strictly forbidden from associating with other known felons, sitting in a crowded probation waiting room is a bizarre paradox. You are legally required to be there, surrounded by dozens of other convicted individuals. But if you strike up a friendly conversation about the weather with the guy sitting next to you, a strict officer can instantly violate you for unauthorized association. The very building meant to monitor your success is a giant legal trap. The journey back to a normal life is practically impossible when the state sets invisible traps at every corner. We claim to want rehabilitation, but does forcing adults to live under these microscopic, paranoid conditions actually make America safer? Or does it just guarantee they end up back behind bars? Let the debate begin in the comments. If this video changed your perspective, drop a like and subscribe for more truths.